All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 3rd of July, 2024. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. We've got a lot to discuss in this episode, including a sit-down conversation with the Flyers Director of Player Development, Riley Armstrong. Now, development camp or prospects camp is underway at the Flyers Training Center. Began, I guess, technically on Monday, some off-ice workouts, players going through some of the paces, draft in town prospects, and on the ice yesterday. But we'll get to Riley in just a couple minutes. Interesting conversation with him. But since we last spoke, obviously free agency opened. Flyers did make some signings, including, we're not going to bury the lead here, including the signing of the entry-level contract. Now, this isn't a free agent signing. This is a draft pick signing from 2023. They signed Matvei Michkov to a 3-year entry-level contract. He is signed, sealed, soon to be delivered. So this is great news as the contract is done, 3-year deal, and Matvei Michkov is officially now a member of the NHL and a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. So great news to see that come out on Monday. Then also the Flyers re-signed defenseman Erik Johnson to a 1-year contract worth $1 million. And I know some people were kind of freaking out on social media. He's going to block. He's basically going to be your 8th defenseman and provide that veteran leadership. And as we saw last year with Mark Stahl, the role that he comes in to fill is very upfront, and he's not going to play a lot. He's not going to be in the lineup all the time. He will be a healthy scratch. But it's good to have that veteran leadership around. He is blocking absolutely no one. And then also the Flyers extended the contract. They were able to extend going into the final year of a 2-year contract with Garnet Hathaway. They extend Garnet Hathaway 2 more years, which will kick in not this season, but the year after at an average annual value of $2.4 million. So Garnet Hathaway signed a 2-year deal. 1 year into it gets a 2-year extension. So all said and done, 4-year commitment to the Flyers' very pesky winger, Garnet Hathaway. So congrats to him. Great guy to have around. As you've seen in our conversations here on Flyers Daily, whenever we get Garnet on, he's very cerebral, very smart, intelligent guy, and a guy that's a lot of fun to watch, and a guy that helps young players by the way he plays, the way he carries himself, and certainly creates kind of the modern-day version of the guy who creates accountability on the ice. You don't have a lot of the pure fighters anymore, but you do have guys like Garnet Hathaway who will stand up for teammates and will press the accountability button for the opposition when need be. Also, the Flyers' schedule has been released, and the Flyers are going to open up their season on the road. And I know this freaked a lot of people out because they're going to open up with a 4-game road trip out of the time zone. First 4 games, all at 10 o'clock at night. Season begins for the Flyers on October 11th, 10 p.m. against the Vancouver Canucks. That'll also be the home opener against Vancouver as well. A week later, 8 days later, at Wells Fargo Center on October 19th. That 4-game road trip to open the season, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Seattle. They've done this a couple of times over the past 8 or so years, where they've started out west. And it's my belief that that's a good thing. I know it's not ideal, the buzz of a started season for games to be happening at 10 o'clock at night, 3,500 miles away in Vancouver, British Columbia. But to knock out a West Coast trip, a multiple time zone trip, before, as your first series of the season, I think is a good thing. Because I think it mitigates the stress of one of those trips. It mitigates, there's no games in front of it other than preseason. So you go out there, you begin your season. It's good to get the group on the road right out of the gate, out away from everything, get them to come together, and you don't have to make that trip later on in the season. So I actually like that they're starting the year out there, because you don't want to be going on that trip in the beginning of March when you've got 15 games or 16 games in the calendar month. You don't want to add that travel on top of that. So I think it's a good thing to start out there. As I said, the home opener will be October 19th against the Vancouver Canucks. They opened up at home last year with Vancouver as well. It was a 2-0 win last year. And they'll get Vancouver Saturday, October 19th. That'll be a 2-game homestand. They'll see Washington coming up on that Tuesday. Couple of notes from the schedule. Couple of observations. First and foremost, 13 back-to-backs for the Flyers on their schedule this year. Now, a lot of teams are going to be in this situation because there's a break in the schedule because of the Four Nations Cup. So it condenses things even a little further. So 13 back-to-backs. They have 3 games in 4 nights 11 times this year and 4 games in 6 nights 13 times this year. So, again, they're not going to be the only team in this situation when you have the break that they have for the Four Nations Cup in the NHL schedule. Basically, the Flyers will play their last game before that break on February 8th against Pittsburgh, and they won't return until the 22nd at home against Edmonton. So you have to condense those games somewhere. Here's how the games break down this season. October, they start on the 11th, so it's not a full calendar month of games, but they have 11 games in the month of October. 5 of them are at home, so 5 home, 6 on the road. November, there's 14 games, 8 of which are at home. Then in December, they have 13 games. There's obviously the Christmas break there. 5 are at home, and they kind of wrap around Christmas once again with the West Coast trip while Disney on Ice is in Philadelphia. So before Christmas on the 23rd, they'll play the Penguins, and then after Christmas, they'll head out on a road trip, and they'll get their first look at Cutter Gauthier and the Anaheim Ducks on the 28th of December. All in all, that road trip is 7 games. But you look at the trip, and it's broken up because of the Pittsburgh game, but 6 games on the road still, nothing to shake a stick at. 5 of the games in the month of December are at home. And then in January, where that road trip continues, it'll be Anaheim, Los Angeles, San Jose, Vegas, and the Toronto Maple Leafs will wrap up that trip before they come back home and take on Toronto at home. The month of January, 15 games, 7 at home. The month of February, only 7 games because of the break that I mentioned for the Four Nations Cup. 4 of those games are at home. And then March, once again, the busiest month of the season. Flyers had 16 games in 30 days last year. It's 16 in 31 days this year, 10 of which are at home. And they do have a 7-game homestand as well. I don't recall a 7-game homestand in a long, long time. Prior to the 7-game homestand, they have 5 games, 5 road games in 6, and there's some tough spots to the schedule. But the homestand starts on March 4th. It's Calgary on March 4th. Then the 6th, it's Winnipeg. The 8th is Seattle. The 9th is New Jersey. The 11th is Ottawa. The 13th is Tampa. And the 15th is Carolina. None of those games back-to-back. So basically 2 weeks, calendar weeks at home, and 7 straight games. They play every other day for that entire homestand. 4, 6, 8. There is a back-to-back. The 8th and the 9th, Saturday and Sunday, Seattle and New Jersey. So 7-game homestand there. And we'll see Connor Bedard for the first time at Wells Fargo. Well, second time we saw him last year, November 23rd. The Flyers will play the Western Conference representative in the Stanley Cup Finals on October 15th in Edmonton, second game of the year, or third game of the year. And then the Oilers visit Wells Fargo. We'll see Connor McDavid on February 22nd. And obviously, a big one is when the Ducks come to town and Cutter Gauthier comes back to Philadelphia for the first time. And that will be Saturday night, January 11th. And they play the Ducks in Anaheim on December 28th. So schedule is out. You can plan accordingly. And the Flyers coming down the stretch once again. Last year the issue when they came down the stretch, after they had the pseudo gauntlet of opposition, they had inferior teams where they didn't perform well. Well, coming down the stretch this year, starting on March 27th, you get some of that again. Montreal on the 27th, Buffalo. We'll see if those teams are improved. We don't know yet. Buffalo may be. Nashville on March 31st, they're a good team. They got some help too, including Steven Stamkos. Then Montreal again on the 5th of April. The Rangers, good team. Islanders, good team. But then they finish with Ottawa, Columbus, and Buffalo. So that's the Flyers schedule. It is out. It is released. I had the presumption that the season for them would start on October 10th. It didn't. It starts on the 11th, and it's just 100 days from now when the Flyers will begin the NHL regular season in Vancouver against the Canucks. Certainly a good team, and Rick Tocchet and the Canucks had a really good year and a little bit of a playoff run as well. So tons coming up for the Flyers. Now, coming up on Flyers Daily, as I said, we're going to get to our interview and conversation with Riley Armstrong. I had a chance to sit down and tape a bunch of interviews. We talked to Jet Lachenko. He'll be on Friday's episode. Boy, I was really impressed with, for a 17-year-old to boot, how kind of polished he is already. And he doesn't look 17. Facially, he's not built like a 17-year-old. He looks like a gym rat. So we'll hear from Jet Lachenko coming up on Friday's episode. We also have Oliver Bonk that we talked to, Carson Bjarnason, who looks like he put on a ton of muscle, Denver Barkey, Devin Kaplan, Noah Powell, Alex Bump, Hunter McDonald, Cole Knuble, and many, many, many more. So we talked to a ton of the drafted players and prospects that are in camp this week. So look forward to that content coming up as well. Plus, we're going to have some other guests throughout the next couple of weeks. We'll have Danny Briere, Brent Flair, and others as we go forward here as well. I even put a request in for Matvey Michkov, but we might need an interpreter. May speak some English, but not sure. Maybe like Ivan Fedotov when he sat down with us, he had Denis Garyanov with him to help him with some of the questions that I asked to know what I was asking him. So maybe we'll have Matvey Michkov on as well. But let's get to our featured conversation. The Flyers Director of Player Development is Riley Armstrong. He's in charge of this week, running all the operations, all the practices, off-ice workouts, and off-ice fun activities as well. Here's my conversation with Riley Armstrong. It's Flyers Daily on the road, and we're at Prospect Camp, and very happy to be sitting down with Director of Player Development, Riley Armstrong. Ross, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just excited to get the week started.
You got some delays on some players getting in. By the time people hear this, it'll be Wednesday, but getting everybody in and getting things underway, a lot of work goes into the preparation of this. Now that it's finally here, it probably feels pretty good to see some players actually in the building.
It is. I think that is really the hardest part is finalizing a roster. You have an idea of what guys are coming in, guys from last year, invites that get invited right at the end of the season, and then you go to the draft, and then you add those new players and get them here, and a couple other guys, that might have fallen through the cracks, but our scouts and management staff are excited about, so we invite them in. I think those are kind of the areas where you just kind of have to go with the flow and adjust, and it's something definitely with hockey. You get to learn how to adjust and maneuver around all those different areas.
It's a microcosm for the game.
Yeah, you got that right.
I always say it. Hockey's a weird game. There's a bunch of guys with, sharpened blades on their feet, wearing all this gear, chasing around a piece of vulcanized rubber on ice. It's not going to be super predictable.
You got that right. Yeah.
And that's why we love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no one play like football or, and things like that. Although, football's a great sport and, it's mean out there and ugly. But I think when you strap, like you said, the steel on a pair of skates, it can get pretty ugly out there as well.
Well, that's the thing. The game, there's a level of unpredictability to it, and you got to be malleable as a player and adjust. But there are elements you can control, and that's part of what development camp is getting guys in here working on skills, working on elements of their game that they need to improve to get to the next level. Talking to some of the guys today and seeing some of them come in, I'm mind blown. Talked to these guys last year, and they look far different this year than 1 year from 18 to 19 or 19 to 20. You see a huge difference in some of these guys.
Yeah, I think that's like the whole part of it. That's what we like to come in and be able to do some testing on them and be able to collect numbers where we can see growth, off of the ice just as much as them being on the ice. And I think a lot of the times in their development might not necessarily come with a skill set that takes place during a game, but it's away from the rink. And and it's just growing up. They're a teenager, and then they slowly adapt into being an adult. Whether that's cooking on their own, eating properly, being in the gym. And as that time kind of ticks away, you get to kind of see them grow up a little bit. So I think that's always cool for myself. You get to watch these guys, like Bobby Brink, Tyson Forster, who have kind of already developed through this plan, and see how much they have changed, just in the way that their body is, the way they handle themselves in the locker room and on the ice. So I think that's the coolest part for me, is seeing them, how they grow away from the rink.
Ross, I talk about it all the time. We have to realize that in the NHL draft, Jetlachenko is 17 years old.
Yeah.
He's not even 18 yet. We see players drafted in the NFL. They're 21, 22, 23, playing college programs. We see them on TV. These are kids, and that development requires a little bit of a different touch, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think that's where you have to be really patient with the players that we are drafting right now. Like you said, they're 17, they're not 21. It's not like they're stepping in. I think those generational talents can step in and play.
Yep.
But I think for the other guys, it's understanding it's not there right away, and there's certain steps that we have to take along the way in their development. Whether it's going back to play college hockey a little bit longer, or go back and play junior hockey a little bit more. There might be other kids on other teams that come out quicker, but the way that we want to be patient and make sure that these kids, when they get here, that they're ready to go.
Sometimes there's marker boards you want to hit along the way in development. Sometimes a player may miss a marker board, but then all of a sudden he jumps to 2 marker boards.
Yeah.
Things can fall really quick sometimes for players. Like something clicks, at maybe that's physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, in their maturity, and all of a sudden they knock off a couple quicker than you thought.
Yeah, I'd probably call that guy a late bloomer. Mm-hmm. He's kind of coming. I think that's where teams, they aren't so patient, and they kind of give way on that player, and then all of a sudden he jumps, to another team, and everybody's scared of that though, right?
Yeah.
He jumps to another team, then all of a sudden he pops, and they're like, "Oh, we had him," and
damn.
So I think that's where that patient comes in, and of understanding, okay, let's just give him another year, and sticking with him a little bit to kind of see if we can get him to turn the corner. So, that's what we do, and discussing with Danny and Brent and Alan McCauley all the time about, players and kind of seeing their path and where they're at as well.
Sometimes there's signals of that's going to happen for a player, that they may be a late bloomer, because you do see the work ethic and the seriousness which they carry themselves.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players like that. I think they did like a study on it. A kid born in January or an earlier birth date is likely to be more like, I guess, more developed and more mature than a player compared, October, November, December birthday. So there are certain trends that you can look at with that, just through sports science and all that kind of stuff. If you're into that.
It's absolutely true, because they measured first-round picks in the major sports, and there's more first-round picks that are born in that beginning part. Because when you're younger, 6 months is a big difference.
Huge.
So you're better, and you get more playing time. You get higher-level coaching because you move up, and it's the fact of the matter. Those late bloomers, late birthday guys, they're up against it a little bit. So when a guy like Jetlachenko, who, had he been born a couple of weeks later, would have been in next year's draft.
Yeah.
This is a raw hockey player.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. So you look, just Jet walking around the room, though, talking about him, he carries himself well.
Yeah.
I think he's really mature beyond being 17, just being in the room already. And, I think
Looks pretty stacked physically, too.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's taking workouts serious.
He definitely knows where the gym is.
Yeah. Maybe you can show me.
I know. I might have to go take a workout from him.
When one of the rewarding things is when you guys get on the ice is looking at a player that you had last year. You had your meeting at the end of development camp, and you said, we want you to work on this, this, and this. And they come back and then they show it to you. That's probably pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it's even seeing the steps during the year. We all go out and watch all these kids.
You're always monitoring, yeah.
And we're checking in with them each week, and whether it's doing a video session here or there on Zoom, and always being in touch with them, and you can kind of start to see their game take turns. I think one guy that's probably stands out, and you look at Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey, and they had goals at the start of the year, and like Barkey to get
Shattered
100
them.
points, they just blow through it. Alex Bump, who
Much bigger.
way bigger, had a big role and as a freshman at Western Michigan, and put up some really good numbers and played a lot of good minutes. And I think he's coming along really nice. So there are guys when you're watching them, you're like you're seeing it right before your eyes, and you're like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
How much do you enjoy that process of through the year, kind of going around seeing them and then talking to them and continuing that development path that they're on?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Off of the start, they're like really shy and
Yeah.
hi and this and that, and then as you kind of get to know them, it's like, hey Riles, they're
Breaking your ball.
oh yeah, they're chirping me now, and I'm like, wow, that happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
It's hockey.
yeah, so I think that's kind of opening them up and building that connection with them, that they feel comfortable coming here and wanting to be here, and I think that's the biggest part.
This development camp, as you do these things, you learn more and more, and you employ different tactics. What are some changes or some upgrades to kind of what you're doing this year?
Yeah, well, we're only down to one sheet because they're
Yeah.
they're constantly making the facility better. So when you bring anybody in here from the NHL level down to our prospects, we're trying to make it the best that it can be in
Wow factor.
with here, and I think they're doing a great job with that. I think adjusting to that, having one sheet, we had two sheets last year, so it was a little bit easier to kind of get on the ice and move around. But some things that we're putting in this year is understanding areas of the game to be an NHL player. From the defensive side, being more aggressive with our D, checking forward, having good sticks, and kind of playing more on our toes, not so much just accepting that I'm taking this rush or I'm going to play it like this. It's being a little bit more aggressive. And then from the forward standpoint, one thing we want to add in are the little board battles. You look at the way that Torts coaches, and same with Lappy, both demanding physical coaches, and I think for a player to catch their eye is understanding how to do the little things in their game. And I think board battles, getting pucks off the wall, making just like an easy play.
Yeah.
The simple play sometimes stands out more than that cross ice saucer pass that looks good. And it's having them understand that side of the game too, that lead to much bigger things offensively. And they also take care of the D side of the game as well. So those are just some like little things that we want to add in and kind of personalize it to the group that we have this year coming in here.
I imagine, too, part of it is pushing pace, because we saw the team last year. I mean, the year prior, I could probably count on my two hands, how many off-the-rush goals the team had. Then they come into last year, second in the NHL off the rush. I mean,
Yes.
we saw very early. We're not going to do neutral zone regroups. We're going to check forward, cause a turnover, and we're going.
Yep.
So the other team can't even get in their structures. I imagine pace is a big part of it.
Yes. Yeah, and I know it's July and kids just got drafted, and some guys are just kind of ramping up their workouts as well. So, I think as the week goes on and guys start to kind of get comfortable, and whether it's new gloves or pants and they break it in, I think that's why having that scrimmage on Saturday is so cool.
Yeah.
They want to go out there in a friendly match, but it's hockey. Everybody's competitive. They want to win. They want to show, hey, I can play. I'm getting better, and I think it's kind of a nice send off for the guys and all of us as well, that we get to see them grow throughout the week.
You know how hockey players are and competitors. They plug the scoreboard in, they're going to spill it.
Exactly.
No matter what.
Yeah.
No matter. It doesn't have to be hockey. It can be anything.
Yeah.
You're keeping score.
Yeah,
They want to tear your heart out.
you got that right. And that's why we
and
do
you need
it.
those guys.
Yeah.
You need guys that want to attack it that way. I saw Carson Bjarnason. He came in. I know you don't handle the goalie so much, but the difference in his body year to year was mind blowing.
Yeah.
He looks like a Hulk. Just
Well,
enormous.
we said if you get just bigger in your body or bigger in the net, you stop more pucks. So, you gotta work the system a little bit. But no, he's been putting a lot of work in off the ice and on the ice, and doing all that stuff. So it was pretty cool to see him come in this week.
How much does Barkey need to just add more muscle? I mean, he's such a dynamic player. He's never going to be a Hulk. He's never that. He doesn't have the frame for that. But to play in the NHL, he's going to have to put as much on strength-wise as he can.
For sure.
And where does the strength need to be? Is it need to be the lower half? And
Probably a good mix.
The arms?
I think in his lower half will add to the base and stability in his battles. Obviously, being a smaller guy going into those areas, and then I think it's also a mixture of that upper body as well. You look at a lot of guys in the smaller frame. They tend to get banged up going into corners, taking the hits that they do. So it's having him understand how to avoid some of those hits where he's not constantly getting hit all the time. And he's really smart. So I don't think there's an issue with that. I think it's just having his body develop more. So when he is getting hit by those bigger defensemen, that his body can handle it and it just doesn't break down. And I think that'll come.
With players like him, there's a lot you can teach him, but there's some things you just can't teach him and you go, I don't need to teach him. He's just dynamic.
He is.
He's got dynamic talent.
He is really good at that. And he has a really good motor on him. There's a couple times this year we had to cut back on a shift length a couple of times because he just wants to go.
Yeah.
But I think his biggest growth that he took this year was when Cowan left for World Juniors and he didn't make the team. And he kind of put the team on his back during that month and a half stretch while Team Canada was playing. And, it was an opportunity for him to kind of be a leader on that team. He collected a ton of points. Guys wanted to play with him.
Yeah.
He started to be kind of the center.
Became
of
the man.
attention. Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's good for guys to be the man and carry a team. And I thought he did that this year. It was really fun to watch and just chatting with him and going through that process with him. A lot of ups and downs. Obviously not making Team Canada is a big blow, but then going to London and showing, you should have picked me type mindset, and I definitely think he did that.
Yeah, everybody says they want to be the man, but it's not easy being the man.
It's
Some
not.
People get there and they go, oh,
yeah,
I can't, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah.
But other guys step up in that situation, and he did.
He did big time.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had some really good talks, and I think the sky's the limit for him, to be honest, once he kind of grows into his body more.
This rebuild is going on. Last thing for you, and a big part of the rebuild is, drafting the right players, developing them. You mentioned before working on skills for the NHL, and you see trends in the league. You see the teams that are having success and why. Like I look at Edmonton and I go, they've had all the skill in the world for years, but they didn't go anywhere in the playoffs because they didn't defend the middle of the ice at all. This year they said they made a commitment to defending the middle of the ice, and they go to the final. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
And you see what these teams do, and you take that and put that into the development plan also.
Yes, and you look at the Flyers and seeing how they played, and they played with, like you said, pace. They're up and down the rink. They're a fast, hard-checking team, blocked a ton of pucks. But I think when you go back and look at all their goals, you touched on scoring off of the rush. And when you go back and where the play started from was winning a little board battle, making a play, a D-man pinches, you're taking a hit to make a play, which then leads to a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 with the D jumping up in there, and it's a goal. And it's like that little play in the D zone got us that goal. It wasn't, the final touch. It was this player making that play. So it's doing like that type of stuff.
There's an anatomy to a goal being scored. You got to do like a forensic break. Like I remember there was a play, Konechny seemed way out of the play, but he creates back pressure because you never know when you're coming back to the zone when you may affect the play. The play by the other team ends up high. He picks a pocket. They go the other way and score. Like those kind of things. So those are just habits that because you never know when you'll be able to affect it.
Yeah, and I think that's like the way Torts coaches, the way Lappy coaches, like that's how they play. And I really use development camp as setting that standard of we're gonna have a ton of fun during this week on the stuff that we're doing. We have planned away from the rink, but when we come to the rink, we want to work, we want to get better, and if you want to play for the Flyers, then like you better be able to meet that standard. So that's pretty much what we use the week for.
Bet you're looking forward to getting your hands on Matvei Mishkov. Seeing those hands in person.
I know. It'll be pretty cool. It's going to be cool. Yeah.
You watch that and you go, how's he doing that?
I think he's going to put people in the seats, and then
Yeah.
I'm planning on him taking them right out too.
Yeah, wow.
Yep.
It'll be exciting times for sure. Riley, thanks for doing this. Have a great week, and we appreciate the time as always.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Great to catch up with Riley Armstrong. Very busy man this week, but really interesting stuff, and talking about, checking in and staying on top of the development of players, not only in the summer, in their off season when they're, coming to a camp like prospect camp or something like that, but also during the season wherever they're playing, whether they're in the OHL or they're playing collegiate hockey or whatever it is, going to check on them and talking to them about their development, talking to their coaches and those kind of things as well. So thanks to Riley Armstrong for taking the time to join us on what is a very busy week for him. Again, Jet Lachenko will be our guest coming up on Friday's episode. So everybody have a great couple of days. Have a great 4th of July, a healthy and safe one. And we'll talk to you Friday on a brand new Flyers Daily.